night sky has always held a sense of wonder and mystery for humanity. Among the countless twinkling stars, one celestial event has captivated the imaginations of people for centuries: the mysterious Star of Bethlehem. This enigmatic celestial phenomenon, mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew, is believed to have guided the Magi, or wise men, to the birthplace of Jesus Christ. But what was this star, and how can we make sense of it through the lens of biblical accounts? To unravel the mystery of the Star of Bethlehem, we must delve into the rich tapestry of the biblical narrative. The story begins in the Gospel of Matthew, which states that wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." Matthew 2 verses 1 to 2, these wise men, often depicted as kings or astrologers, were captivated by a celestial sign that they believed heralded the birth of a new king. The Gospel of Matthew goes on to describe the star leading the Magi to Bethlehem, where they found the infant Jesus and his parents, Mary and Joseph. After listening to the king, they went on their way. And behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. Matthew 2 verse 9. This miraculous event has inspired countless works of art, music, and literature, and has been the subject of intense scholarly debate for centuries. One of the first questions that arises is the nature of this celestial phenomenon. Was it a literal, physical star in the sky, or was it something more symbolic or metaphorical? Scholars have proposed various explanations, ranging from comets and supernovae to conjunctions of planets or even a miraculous, supernatural event. One of the more plausible explanations is that the Star of Bethlehem was likely a conjunction of planets, specifically a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. This idea was first proposed by the 17th century astronomer Johannes Kepler, who noted that a close conjunction of these two planets would have been visible in the night sky around the time of Jesus' birth. According to Kepler's calculations, a series of conjunctions between Jupiter and Saturn occurred in the years 7 to 6 BCE, which would have been in line with the biblical timeline of Jesus' birth. These conjunctions would have appeared as a single, bright star in the sky, and would have been an auspicious sign for the Magi, who were likely skilled in astrology and would have recognized the significance of such a celestial event. Another possible explanation is that the Star of Bethlehem was a comet or a supernova. Comets were often seen as omens or signs of significant events in the ancient world, and a bright comet in the sky could have been interpreted as a signal of the birth of a new king. Similarly, a supernova, a massive stellar explosion that produces a brief, extremely bright light, could have been perceived as a miraculous celestial event. However, the biblical account does not seem to fit neatly with the characteristics of a comet or supernova. The star is described as going before them and coming to rest over the place where the child was, which suggests a more directed and intentional movement than what would be expected from a comet or supernova. Some scholars have also proposed that the Star of Bethlehem was a unique, supernatural event, created by God specifically to guide the Magi to the birthplace of the Messiah. This interpretation sees the star as a miraculous, divine sign, rather than a natural astronomical phenomenon. While this explanation may satisfy the theological needs of some believers, it can be more challenging to reconcile with the scientific understanding of the universe. Regardless of the specific nature of the Star of Bethlehem, the biblical account suggests that it was a significant and noteworthy event in the eyes of the Magi. They recognized it as a sign of the birth of a new king, and it motivated them to undertake a long and arduous journey to find the child and pay him homage. The Magi's journey is itself a fascinating aspect of the story. The Gospel of Matthew tells us that they came from the east, but does not specify their exact place of origin. Scholars have proposed various locations, including Persia, Babylon, or even further afield in India or China. These men were likely skilled in astronomy and astrology, and would have been well versed in the interpretation of celestial signs. The fact that the Magi were able to recognize the significance of the star and undertake a journey to find the newborn king suggests that they may have been expecting the arrival of a significant figure. Some scholars have proposed that the Magi were familiar with the prophecies of the Hebrew scriptures, which foretold the coming of a Messiah, and that they were on the lookout for this event. One intriguing possibility is that the Magi may have been influenced by the prophecies of the Jewish sage Daniel, who had lived and worked in Babylon centuries earlier. Daniel was known for his skill in interpreting dreams and visions, and he had made several prophecies about the coming of a great king or anointed one, the meaning of the word Messiah. It's possible that the Magi, who may have been descendants of the Babylonian astrologers, were familiar with Daniel's prophecies and were actively looking for their fulfillment. When the Magi arrived in Jerusalem, they went directly to King Herod, the ruler of Judea at the time, and asked, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews?" Matthew 2 verse 2, this question immediately set off alarm bells for Herod, who was threatened by the prospect of a rival claimant to the throne. Herod was a ruthless and paranoid ruler, and he saw the Magi's inquiry as a potential challenge to his power. Herod's reaction is telling. He summoned the chief priests and scribes and asked them where the Messiah was to be born. They informed him that the prophecies pointed to Bethlehem as the birthplace of the Messiah. Herod then called the Magi and instructed them to go to Bethlehem and report back to him, claiming that he wanted to worship the child as well. Matthew 2 verse 8. However, Herod's true intentions were far more sinister. When the Magi did not return to him, he ordered the massacre of all the male children in Bethlehem under the age of 2, in a desperate attempt to eliminate the perceived threat to his rule. Matthew 2 verses 16 to 18. This horrific event, known as the Massacre of the Innocents, is a chilling reminder of the high stakes and political intrigue that surrounded the birth of Jesus. The story of the Star of Bethlehem and the Magi's journey has captured the imagination of Christians and non-Christians alike for centuries. It has been the subject of countless works of art, music, and literature, and has inspired countless sermons and theological reflections. One of the most enduring aspects of the story is its universal appeal. The Magi, who were likely Gentiles, represent the idea that the message of the Messiah was not just for the Jewish people, but for all of humanity. Their journey to worship the infant Jesus symbolizes the breaking down of barriers and the inclusion of all people in God's plan of salvation. This theme of universality is further reinforced by the fact that the Magi were not just any visitors to the newborn king. They were wise men, skilled in the ways of astronomy and astrology, and they recognized the significance of the celestial sign that had led them to Bethlehem. Their act of worship and the presentation of their gifts demonstrate that the birth of Jesus was a momentous event that had ramifications far beyond the boundaries of Judea. The story of the Star of Bethlehem also speaks to the enduring human desire to find meaning and purpose in the cosmos. The Magi's recognition of the star as a sign of the Messiah's birth reflects the ancient belief that the heavens held divine messages and that the movements of the celestial bodies were imbued with cosmic significance. In our modern, scientifically-driven world, it can be easy to dismiss such beliefs as superstition or wishful thinking. But the enduring fascination with the Star of Bethlehem suggests that there is something deep within the human psyche that yearns for a connection between the earthly and the divine, between the material and the spiritual. Perhaps the story of the Star of Bethlehem speaks to a universal human longing for a sense of meaning and purpose in the universe. The Magi's journey to worship the newborn king represents the timeless quest to find the divine, to discover the hidden patterns and meanings that lie beneath the surface of the physical world. In the end, the mystery of the Star of Bethlehem remains just that, a mystery. The biblical account is tantalizing, but it leaves many questions unanswered. Was it a literal, physical star, or a more symbolic or metaphorical representation? What was its precise nature, and how did the Magi interpret its significance? These questions have been the subject of intense scholarly debate for centuries, and they continue to capture the imagination of people around the world. But perhaps the true power of the story lies not in the specifics of the celestial phenomenon, but in the deeper spiritual and theological truths that it represents. The story of the Star of Bethlehem is a story of hope, of the search for meaning, and of the recognition of the divine in the midst of the mundane. It is a story that transcends the boundaries of time and culture, and speaks to the universal human experience of seeking connection with the sacred. As we gaze up at the night sky, perhaps we can catch a glimpse of the wonder and mystery that captivated the Magi so long ago. The stars still shine, and the cosmos still holds secrets waiting to be discovered. And perhaps, in the midst of it all, we can find a glimmer of the divine, a sign that points us towards the deeper truths of our existence.